All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting. Um, we have a full quorum, and so we'd like to. It's 6 o'clock. If you'd like, please join me on the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. Okay. Item 3, citizen comment period. Thank you. So we have some folks signed up for the citizen comment period. Just be mindful that there is a time limit. You have 3 minutes. I'll call your name, and you could come up to the dais. And Wes Klecki, did I pronounce that correctly?
Good evening. That's what I get for putting my name in number 1 spot, huh? All right, my name is Wes Kleckley. I live in Wildwind here in Garden Ridge. Been here since 2009. I've got a mortgage office right across the street from where the revival is going to go. And I'm a business owner, family man. My in-laws live here. And I just coming out just for my support for Mark and Eric and their project. I think the ones against it, although I respect that, and I do respect the kind of feel of Garden Ridge that we've had, and I want to keep that as well. But listen, I've been here for 15 years. We have no place to have food, to hang out, and it's about time we do it, and it's time that we stop letting a few citizens keep us from doing anything. I've got 14 acres right down the road, that hayfield right there on 2252 Door Lane. I thought about putting it up for sale, and I contacted a commercial brokerage. They wouldn't even take the listing on a multi-million-dollar listing because they said, look, nobody's going to buy it because it is too hard to get anything done and approved in Garden Ridge. So I think it's time we finally take a look at it and see what can we put here that's reasonable, that's going to be good for the community, have a cool place to hang out. As far as noise goes, yes, you can hear Blue Bonnet, but they've got big-time bands over there, electric guitars, amps, drums. These guys are talking about having a family-friendly venue with acoustic guitars, singing, pickleball courts. I'm all in favor. So just want to come here and show my support for y'all tonight, and thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have up next Nicholas Guerra.
Hello. Good evening. Thanks for having me. And I just wanted to stand here and also show my support for the revival. As you said, my name is Nicolas Guerra. I've been living in the community for about 14 years now. And as a pediatrician, I spend my days taking care of kids and families. And anyone here who has children or grandchildren knows the challenge of stealing their time away from their devices. I think we all struggle with competing with time with our friends, with our family, due to sports, due to video games, due to social media, basically anything else that they want to spend their time on and give their attention to besides us. So I understand some of the concerns that people in our community have, but just like Mr. Kleckley, I believe that it's time we have a place that our community can gather together. I think that after discussing with Mr. Fisher and Mr. Mulkey, what they plan on doing is having a place where we can spend time with our kids, where we can meet with our neighbors, we can commune as a community together, play pickleball. Yes, I do understand they plan on selling alcohol, just like the gas station or other restaurants in the area. But I don't think that this is meant to be a place where we go and hide from our family. I think it's meant to be a place we can go and spend time with each other. So I do support the revival. I look forward to having a place that my family and I can spend time together on these beautiful evenings like tonight. And I hope that you can also see that this would be a good thing for our community. Thank you very much.
Okay, up next, we have Scott Miller.
Yes, I'm Scott Miller, and I live at 9312 Berean Way, right behind Northeast Bible Church, so it's pretty close to where I am. I think I'm probably the only one so far going to speak about negatively. For someone who lives close to that property, I'll give you my perspective. I already tap my toe often to Brublant Palace when it's going on late at night, and that's inside the home. I already listen to kids and their activities on Wednesday nights for the Bible studies, which I get, but it's there. So it's, again, impacting our quality of life. During COVID, I could watch movies on blow-up screens that were as large as a movie theater out our back window that the church did. Again, it's fine, they did it, but it's there. In the summertime, they host their carnivals, big tents, lots of music, blow-up things, lots of activities for just a couple of days. They just added disc golf to the back area of the church where kids and stuff are running around the back throwing frisbees into the thing right behind our fence. Once a month, I wake up starting at early in the morning to all the traffic for market days that goes on again just over our fence. That starts off with the cars and everybody setting up their tents. Then we have the generators, and then we have the music, and then you have the PA announcements with everybody telling you everything that's going on. So while all that's directed towards the church, and what goes on there, I don't think anyone would have thought all those activities would be happening. Certainly I didn't when we first moved in about 15 years ago. Things tend to grow, and they grow beyond what people think they may. For those in the immediate area, so most of the people I think speaking, I'd ask where they lived. If you live far away, you know, it's like everybody wants a McDonald's. They just don't want it in their backyard, or a Walmart, but not in their backyard. So for me, I already hear the traffic on 2252. The music may not be planned to be loud now, but as things grow and as they come to the council or whoever at the planning zone in the future, or they expand, they sell, new owners come in, you may find they want to do a little different opportunities at their venue. And that tends to grow, just as the church venue was just, when we moved out here, I actually came out at night to see what was going on with the lights, and I came out on a Sunday to see how our property would be impacted by the church, and we were comfortable with it. I never dreamed once a month I'd be getting market days. And it is a large event, it's a popular event, so I'm the minority when it comes to, you know, saying that's not a negative. But if you live nearby, and for the homeowners that live nearby that 2252 environment, I think this is more of a negative than it is a positive. And things do tend to grow, and they grow more than people intend. And then it's like the tar baby. Once you start getting a little bit, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So with that, I'll just say I'm not for it, and I think there could be other opportunities used for that property. Thank you.
Okay, our last, up next is Mark Mulkey.
Good evening. My name is Mark Mulkey, and I've attended a bunch of these meetings. I'm business partners with Eric Fisher, and I wanted for once to have Eric not be the only one that has somewhat of a target on his back. I've sat in a bunch of these meetings, and I know there's some due diligence that takes place. That's part of the process. I understand that, especially being a military person, and everybody has a right to speak. One thing I wanted to talk about is one thing, especially you, Dr. Miller, you've asked Eric a lot of questions because you, as community members, you guys get asked a lot of questions. So I think there's a big false narrative out there. We know when that comes with, you look at what's going on in our political landscape, there's a false narrative. Somebody hears something, they take it as gospel. Unfortunately, Pandora's box is already open. We can't put stuff back in. But one thing I want to make clear to you all is because since you are members of this community and people do ask you questions, is that we're being labeled as an entertainment venue. We're not an entertainment venue. We're being labeled as a concert hall. We're not a concert hall. If anybody can look at our blueprints and see, we are not nearly close to the size of the Bluebonnet whatsoever. That's not where we're geared towards. We're also not a bar, but we will serve alcohol. We've been labeled as a bar, and I actually thought it was pretty rude of some people that they said that that's the clientele they'll bring. The clientele that's going to be going there are your neighbors. You know, it's not a biker bar. You know, it's not a dive bar. It's a community event center, and that's what we're trying to do. If you look at the plan, it is going to be a park that has a pickleball court that will serve alcohol. It's also going to have an ice cream shop. It's also going to have a barber shop. We're also going to provide food trucks. We're also going to provide picnic tables. We're going to build a garden so people can come with their families and enjoy the outdoors. I know that noise is a big thing. I moved out here, but I moved a little bit further out because I wanted to leave Cibolo 14 years ago because it was getting overcrowded and noisy, but we can't stop growth. The expansion of 2252 is going to bring a lot more noise than the Revival will. And it sounds like the church itself will bring a lot more noise than Revival, especially since we're completely on the opposite side of the street. So in regards to, I remember when I first moved out to this area, there was a master plan to bring in not just commercial property and office buildings, but there's a master plan to bring in restaurants, places for families to go, and we're just trying to fulfill that. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
We have Charlene Kraus.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sherilyn Kraus. I'm at 19522 Creekview Oaks. I'm asking the Planning and Zoning Committee to vote no regarding the outdoor amusement venue and bar, The Revival, for the city of Garden Ridge. It's located directly across from Garden Ridge Estates neighborhood, so not only will nearby residents have to deal with even more traffic, but they will have to listen to someone else's music choices every evening and every weekend. This is not a case of a one-off evening of live music at Paul Davis Park. I've heard the music at The Revival will be acoustic, but the singers will still use a microphone and an amp. Simple physics explains how much sound travels. 100 decibels is equal to a boombox or a vehicle or a leaf blower. Just 100 decibels is easily heard a quarter mile away, is moderately loud at a half mile away, and is faintly audible at 1 mile away. Physics explains why I can easily hear Bluebonnet Dance Hall at 2 miles away. It is reasonable to expect that I will hear the music, the crowd noise, and the pickleball courts from the much closer venue, The Revival. Statistics also show that areas with more alcohol outlets tend to experience more alcohol-related injury and crime. There are more alcohol-related injury crashes in areas with more bars. Also, increasing the number of alcohol outlets in an area increases the number of violent assaults. A bar increases the risk of violent crime of any type by 17%. More bars in an area have been shown to be the single most important factor explaining why violent crime rates are higher in some areas than in others. Blocks with bars have higher crime rates for assault, robbery, burglary, rape, murder, theft. I have copies of these statistics if anyone is interested. I also want to point out Section 1.01.05 of Ordinance 13 states that all new development must, not may, must be compatible with existing development and community character and maintain the character, look, and feel of the community. As an example of community character, look, and feel, in Section 2.06.08, Garden Ridge requires garage doors to face away from the street, and our brand, logo, and slogan is naturally home, yet the city is contemplating a bar establishment made out of shipping containers with food trucks. The plans for The Revival do not fit the Garden Ridge community. I, for one, am concerned about the very real possibility of increased crime and the high probability of constantly hearing the music and other noises from this venue. Please vote no. And I do have 28 more signatures for the petition that was turned in December. Thank you.
So that's, no other citizens were signed up. I'm going to move on to item 4A, approval of of the minutes for February the 14th, 2024, of the Planning and Zoning regular meeting. Those minutes were distributed to everyone. And is there any comments or edits to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes for February 14th, 2024.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, minutes approved. Moving on to 4B, the natural features overlay, the NFO District Technical Committee update. The technical committee has met several meetings and worked very hard, and we have come up with a draft revision to the NFO that was in your packet. And so we have also our planner, Bryce, that will also be giving a presentation on that. And so I would like for Bryce to go through the presentation, and then we could have any questions or comments after, just to kind of make the meeting. So Bryce, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission. Great to see you again. Bryce Cox with Rampage Law. I'm the city's planning consultant. So the NFO, the Natural Features Overlay Committee, has met several times to kind of review the overlay district, how it will work. You know, it was conceptualized through the city's comprehensive plan, and then when we updated the city's zoning ordinance, we had information included there. As we continue to see pushes for development along FM 3009 and 2252, it was identified that we really want to start taking a look at that and how to implement it, and any tweaks that need to be made. So as we met and worked through this, let's see if I can maybe get this to work, thinking about it. You're gonna have to help me out. It's okay, there's only like 5 slides though. That might have been it. Thank you. See? That's why they pay you the big bucks, City Secretary. Thank you. So the first item that you have before you, one of the first things that we identified with the Natural Features Overlay District, as you may all know from reading it, is there aren't any incentives to being in this district. So if the city wants to see this as a reality, one of the things that we're proposing is to do city-initiated rezoning, to add that overlay over the existing zoning, so that those properties along those corridors that are applicable will have to apply with these regulations, right? This is one of those things that we look at in planning whenever we have some zoning districts have incentives where it's more favorable for a developer to be in that zoning district or in that overlay, and so we kind of let that happen organically over time through a voluntary process. Other ones are areas where the city wants to see specific targeted features, and whenever we have that, generally we want to go ahead and kind of legislate that down and do city-initiated zoning for this. Ultimately, that'll be a decision by council, though. So what this map represents is we went through, as you may know, the current ordinance is written as a way where it's a kind of a buffer along 2252, or sections of 2252 and sections of 3009. The committee talked a lot about this. We went through several renditions of this map and ultimately decided on this one, which actually shows the full parcels that are along and have frontage along 2252 or 3009, excluding those already developed into residential neighborhoods. And so that's why it kind of hopscotches over a couple properties that are drainage lots that we just know are never going to be anything different, at least in our lifetimes. And we're looking at doing it by parcel as opposed to just that buffer, because what we don't want folks to be able to do as we talk through some of the proposed changes in a moment is we're not looking to have people who have maybe slightly deeper properties work around the requirements and say, oh, well, this only applies to the first 100 feet. So I'll put my building at 101 feet. Right, a lot of the site design elements that we'll talk about deal with are more site-wide versus the landscape buffer, which is just along the right-of-way. And so this way, in this method of thinking about it, and as we've coded or proposed the language, will really help ensure that, hey, if you're within these properties, you'll be compliant. Some of the much larger tracts, which are well beyond the buffering distances that we're looking to make this district work in, as they come in and develop and subdivide those back parcels, they can always request to have that zoning removed involuntarily, and that's something that P&Z and council would look at down the road as those parcels come in for development, because it may not be as applicable at that point, right? Where I get a couple properties in and I don't need to maintain that street frontage for that look and feel that the district's trying to create. So a quick summary of some of the changes that we're proposing with that language. We're revising the district description in section 2.04.02, which right now kind of more legislates exactly where it is. The real answer to how it gets placed is wherever city council ultimately zones it through a zoning ordinance. We're looking to decrease the frontage buffer. There's a requirement right now for a 40-foot frontage buffer, and then whenever there's basically a side street intersecting that corridor, it turns into 60 feet down that side street. It really didn't make sense once we looked at it and kind of mapped and drew it out. So we're proposing to revise that to be the same 40 feet. So you kind of, through that first frontage buffer, we maintain it around the corners. And we don't bring development too close in on the sides as we go down those side streets. We've also looked to revise there's a median driveway that is currently required. We do have shared access requirements already in the zoning and subdivision ordinances. What we've proposed is to make that more of a recommendation, because ultimately it'll be TxDOT who decides what allowance for access is allowed on 2252 and FM 3009. That's not going to change anytime soon. And so we also don't want to tie TxDOT's hands or create any issues there. So we've really peeled this back to be more of a recommendation as opposed to a mandate. And then again, we've also reduced that median width from 20 feet down to 10. This really helps with kind of that double curb cut, which will really help make TxDOT happy, because what they're going to be looking at doing, especially on 2252, where we've got ongoing improvements, is they're looking for managed driveways, right? We've got that median going in, so everything will not be full access. They want to be really careful about how wide they are, how big they are, what those approaches look like, and we want to give all of that allowance back to TxDOT. And so this will be more of a way for us to kind of encourage and say, hey, our preference is this nice, lovely, shared, larger driveway, but in the event that that's not feasible, we'll kind of defer to TxDOT without forcing folks to go through a variance process where TxDOT otherwise wouldn't grant it anyways. We've revised the planting requirements, again, in that front 40-foot buffer. Right now, they're drafted as a set number of plants per 150 linear feet. We've revised those calculations to be a per plant calculation. And we have slightly reduced the number of shrubs, which I will show you in just a second on another slide. Lastly, we've added an exception to the site design elements because they're really geared for non-residential development. And so we do have a couple properties which right now are single-family residentially used. They're proposed in that area, and we don't want to kind of hamstring people who may continue to use it as single-family residential with the commercial requirements like bike racks, for example. So here's just a comparison for the street frontage buffer planning ratios. Right now, we have it on the left, and I've got it bold there. It's a per 150 feet of frontage, 6 shade trees, 4 ornamental trees, 30 shrubs. Right below that, the per plant calculation is that number converted into a per plant amount. The proposed, which again, we're using that proposed plant, not that lower bold piece. However, I've given it to you in the 150 feet so you can see that direct comparison. It's the exact same for shade trees. It's very slightly reduced for ornamental, mainly because we didn't want to leave it at 37.5, which is not a very round number for computing math on planning sides. And then on the shrubs, we have reduced that slightly. And the rationale for this will lead me into my next set of slides. So this is just some rough illustration that we were able to kind of present that actually comes from a different state about planting densities across specific distances. So these are 100-foot swaths at different depths with different densities. A couple of the ones that I have starred are more relevant to the planting densities that we're looking at that are both in the code currently as well as proposed. So you can kind of get that better visual understanding of what this looks like. I will tell you, for Texas, especially with all of our live oak and big oak trees, the canopy trees are dramatically undersized in these pictures. These are more like new plantings as opposed to when they grow big, because I can tell you, you can easily get a live oak with a canopy spread of 80 plus feet, no problem, which would take up pretty much that entire 100-foot linear frontage buffer. But this really helps, and we worked with the committee through a lot of these to just say, are we too dense? Are we not dense enough? Part of the reason we came back on the shrubs is that the design elements are really encouraging a specific design organization to the site, where we have that 40-foot buffer followed by a building, and the drive lanes will be behind the building and along the sides. And so when we have that kind of configuration, we really don't want to cover up that gorgeous building that we're having them do with a bunch of shrubs where I can't actually see through the canopies as the trees grow bigger, because I've got too much understory, too much shrubs that are covering up that great building. The other thing to keep in mind also is that all of these requirements are in addition to your current requirements, which you do have vehicle headlight screening and drive area requirements. So in the event that somebody has a drive aisle or parking in front of the building after the buffer, they will still have kind of that solid shrub row that will be required, adjacent to the drive aisle to help with that. But just kind of wanted to show you all this so that we've got it and kind of demonstrate, here's pretty much where we're at. And again, that big yellow star there on the left, that's 30 feet. We're actually going 40 feet deep, which is a little bit more. And we've peeled back the shrub requirement just a hair, but that's a pretty good representation of kind of what that planting would look like. Here's one with much smaller, denser buffers. We did analyze all of these things because we did look at, as the committee, going down even further or going bigger to really understand what we're looking for at the end of the day. We did settle and decide that 40 feet does seem appropriate, given the expansions to the roadway, the existing developments that we're trying to model a little bit of this after that are providing that character in these areas. And so we do recommend the 40 feet with just the adjusted planting requirements. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Bryce. I'll start. Any questions from, I'll start from my left. Mr. Maloney, do you have any comments?
So, great presentation, by the way. The depiction of the shrubs and the depth, there'll be no effect on the petitioner's venue, the way you described it then, as far as the density of the shrubs and where the building starts after the shrubs, in relation to the shrubs.
Yeah, so right now, it's the current requirement for this overlay district, and again, for those of you who are not familiar with overlays, because this will be the first introduction that we've got to that whole concept for Garden Ridge, it's a second zoning district on top of a base zoning district. And so that's why it's shown with the red diagonal lines, and all the colors underneath are still different colors, whether it's green, yellow, blue, et cetera, because all the properties will maintain their base zoning. And these are just additional requirements that are on top of that base zoning. So one of the things that is required in that overlay is that you provide a 40-foot street frontage landscape buffer adjacent to the right-of-way. So the first 40 feet, no matter what, if you're in that zoning district, will be landscape buffer. And then there's that planting requirement in there. And that'll be in addition to any other requirements based on how the developer chooses to design their site. We don't want to go so far as that we're legislating design, because we've got a lot of properties in this area or that are proposed in this district with different topography, right? I've got some that slope up, I've got some that are flat, I've got some that slope back. We want to be very cautious about that so that we can make sure that the sites still work with all of the other requirements, drainage, setbacks, buffering adjacent to residential, et cetera. So we don't want to get too prescriptive, but we have incentivized through how the site design elements are composed, as well as the planting requirements, that if you pull your building out closer to the street, kind of right after that buffer, life gets a little easier for you because you're able to check off some boxes for those site design elements that you otherwise would have to compensate in a different way.
Yeah, I have a question on landscape architectural design. Typically, would an architect err on the high side with shrubs and trees in a location?
So it just depends, right? The other challenge that we have that we want to maintain with the landscaping is we want to preserve as much of the great natural existing landscaping as we can. certain areas that we have undeveloped, there's a lot of underbrush that probably needs to be cleared out, but there's a lot of good trees. There's probably a lot of good smaller trees, larger trees. We want to preserve as much of that as we can. And so the ratios, are not, hey, you've got to set these things on center, but we want it organically planted in an appropriate way. However, each site will have to meet the minimums, right? So there's minimum setups, and that's the whole point of those ratios, is to say, in this area, you've got to have at least this many shade trees, this many ornamental trees, this many shrubs. As far as where they go exactly, the market is going to sort a lot of that out, and people are going to make nice-looking sites because the cost of development, the cost of land is very high, is advantageous to developers and people developing commercial property to make it look nice.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the presentation. In the ordinance, there's bullet 20402 with the draft edits. It looks like the boundaries and location was reduced from 150 feet, or excuse me, from 200 feet to 150 feet. Can you expound on that, please?
Sure. So what we did is we looked at a lot of the properties, and we actually laid out what that looks like. Specifically, and we'll see if I can kind of point it out on one of these if we can't see. If you look at the area along 2252, kind of where the proposed NFO overlay points to the light green section, those properties are a little under 200 feet, so deep from the roadway. So if we have 200 feet, that overlay actually then reaches onto the property behind it, when the real intent of this overlay, when you look at like what are the meat and taters of this, it's that buffer along the front, which is the first 40 feet, and then design treatment elements related to the building, its orientation, and some of the site features. And we basically established that we feel all of that, for the most part, is occurring in that first 150 feet. And so that 150 feet, again, is that guidance to say this is where it should go. Ultimately, council will zone. If we're zoning by parcel, which is the committee's recommendation and my recommendation as well, it'll actually encompass the full parcels that have frontage along those roadways for those sections.
Karen? Or-
I just want, because I was part of the work group, I just wanted to kind of point out, talking about design elements, that buildings and sites used for single-family residential do not fall under the minimum 4 design elements, so that people would understand that. It's like, okay.
I had nothing.
Thank you, Bryce, for your presentation, and thank you for all the analysis that you and your team put forward to make these changes. Just for some clarification, this will apply to new and existing along 3009 and 2252?
Yes, so like most things that we do with our zoning code, the way that this will apply is, ultimately, tonight is just a workshop item on this as it moves forward for adoption, assuming that we've got it right, which so far it sounds like we're calibrated closely where we need to be. If it's approved, then, and city council chooses to do city-initiated zoning and zone properties into this, it will apply at time of development of that property or redevelopment generally. It may also apply to limited expansions. A lot of this has to do with how the city's non-conforming ordinance is written, because a lot of the properties that may be existing would be considered non-conforming from a site aspect, not necessarily a land use perspective. And so there are requirements in the city's code that over time, as property is redeveloped, or there's major expansions, renovations, et cetera, done, or maybe areas built on that weren't previously developed on that site, those pieces would be brought into compliance, and slowly over time, ideally, the whole corridor gets there.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Bryce and Commissioners, thank you for your comments. I think what we plan to do is today is really just to, we wanted to provide you the draft document so y'all could review it, provide any comments, and then in our next planning and zoning meeting in May, we plan to bring this back and have it for a public hearing, no, a public
For planning and zoning to
to
consider their recommendation concerning the new NFO
and then provide
proposed
that to.
district. And then after that, we would conduct our public hearing.
Okay, so, thank you for that correction, Nancy.
You're welcome.
So at the next meeting, then we'll do that, and then more likely in June is when we will conduct that public hearing and then after that, forward that on to city council. So, you all have the draft document. You all could, I think Bryce answered some questions. If there's any other questions, we could forward those on to Nancy or to Marissa, and we'll get those forwarded on to Bryce and review it and then present that at our next meeting and discuss a little bit more, and hopefully we get to a final document so we could go to the next steps. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? No? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bryce. I appreciate it. So our next item is item 4C. We have a petition by Eric Fisher for 3 specific use permits for the revival to be located on a 1.707 acre tract and a 1.40 acre tract totaling 3.107 acres zoned as commercial CC district and further located at 19186 FM 2252 in Garden Ridge, Texas. Item 1 is a restaurant or cafeteria bar tavern to be allowed an indoor-outdoor bar area serving beer, wine, and mixed drinks with inside and outside seating on premises. At this time, I'll be opening up.
Chairman, can I ask a question before we get started?
Yes.
Could I have the city manager review the cascade of approvals that have to be met before we go forward? I know we've already approved something for this property. Now we're doing the special use permits. What's after this?
So far, planning and zoning has approved the master plan, or master plan has come through planning and zoning and city council. Then there was the rezoning of the property, has gone through city council as well as planning and zoning commission. The next step we did was the platting, both preliminary and final plat process, both which have been approved by, or gone through planning and zoning and city council and were ultimately approved. Now the special use permit. Now, all of these uses are allowed within our zoning, but all 3 of the uses do require a special use permit or a specific use permit. So that's why this is coming before planning and zoning today, but all 3 uses are allowed uses within the community commercial zoning district, which the property is zoned.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. I get on item C, 1.1, be opening up and be hold the public hearing. So it's at 6:39, I'll be opening up the public hearing.
Would you like the petitioners to make a presentation to the commission
Yes,
before you open the public hearing?
yes, thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
So we'll retract the public hearing, and if Mr. Fisher, you have a presentation or would like to speak?
never likes me. Thank you. Not so much of a presentation as I'll just let you know what we're doing. Like Ms. Kane said, we're here today to continue moving forward on development. Like she said, the rezoning of the lots, the master plan, and the replanting of both lots have come through planning and zoning and city council and been approved. We're moving forward on the bar, pickleball court, and food trucks were the ones that needed a specific use permit to be sent. We've heard the concerns from a lot of the citizens, and you've heard them here today too. One that wasn't brought up that we wanted to let everyone know who's out there watching as well. I know there was an outdoor lighting they were concerned about. And we have a lighting plan in the packet that y'all are reviewing. All of it with down lighting and shielded or hooded as the ordinance requires. It'll be very similar to actually Mr. Cleckley's mortgage building across the way where it's all down lighting, so they can take a look at that. We're concerned with light pollution as well, but prioritizing the safety of our patrons is paramount. The other concern, which apparently was the biggest one here today, is noise. Apparently I should be concerned with how much noise the church makes. I didn't know it was that noisy. But we are not a concert venue to hold concerts, not even daily or even possibly every weekend. The stage will be used for various things. If we have fundraisers and we have silent auction items, they'll be placed up there. We needed a place where we could have other units set aside from the actual general public. We were asked by the high school at some point if the theater had any place that they could practice their one-act plays for theater in front of a live audience. Happy to do that there as well on the stage. So it's not a daily, weekly, nightly music hall that it's being portrayed as. As far as houses around there, there's two that are behind our property that are actually in an ag zone. They're not in a residential zone, and those are about 250 feet from our venue. The closest residential zone is actually 500 feet from our building. And just to give y'all an idea of that, the school across the way, the elementary, that's about 300 feet from the front door of here. And I know there's a lot of vocal children on that playground every day, and I'm assuming that business is carried on as usual here in the building. But there's 600 kids that are out there running, screaming, and yelling daily, and that's 300 feet. The residential zoning from ours is about 500 feet. With that said, we know that there's residential around there. We know people are concerned with the noise, which is why on one of the plans in y'all's package, you'll see fences and shrubs specifically around the exterior of the property as well as around the stage area. So if we do have music playing acoustic shows like Raptitude or Paul Davis Park, that'll help baffle the sound as well. We think that I understand the concern that maybe we're not, I was asked this question, what if I decide to change my mind and we want to have a big band there and like Blue Bonnet and have a full band with live music? We go and book Wade Bowen in there. We can't physically do it as a business. If you've seen our plat, people can enter from many various locations. You don't have to enter through a front door. There's not a gate, one in, one out. Just the logistics of selling tickets, trying to see who paid, who didn't pay. Parking would be impossible. We don't have a big enough parking space to take on a venue of that size. We'd have to bring in more bathroom facilities if you were throwing a large concert like that. So it's not possible for ours. You know, the concern came today, what if we sell it and we're out of our business? Well, Garden Ridge knows, y'all know y'all have very strict impervious cover numbers. We're not close to those yet, but we're near them. But the majority we're not close to it because we are building a large park area around the food trucks. There's not a ton of space left to add after what we've built to turn this into a live music venue. Despite if y'all are in these seats in 5, 10, 8 years to change that, unless y'all change y'all's impervious cover rules even more, it's gonna be difficult to put a full amplified type venue on that spot. Just something to think about. And as far as the alcohol being served, we're not inventing bars. It's not prohibition. Bracken Saloon's down the street, not even a mile. So I don't think everyone's, crime's just gonna all of a sudden just pick up overnight because there's one more place that serves beer and wine. Caparelli sells it, Raptitude sells it, Willie's, anywhere y'all are actually going, and it's actually more dangerous if y'all do the research. The farther you travel to go have a drink and sit down, and the farther you have to come back is when you actually get into more wrecks and things like that. There's a lot of statistics on that. If you're closer to home, you get home quicker and safer because you're not traveling as far of a distance. Besides that, like Ms. Kane said, all the items on the master plan and in the specific use permits are allowed in the community commercial district zoning in which we are in. We're not asking for any variances, and we believe that nothing's more naturally home than fellowship with friends and family over a meal, a drink, watching the kids, playing pickleball games, watching a game, and being together. So that's why we're asking for planning and zoning to approve our 3 specific use permits and move them on to city council for a vote. If y'all have any questions, or I'll go sit down.
Is there any questions to Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, if I could, please. You talked about 500 feet from, your building is 500 feet from the residential,
From a residential zone,
which is across the street.
across 2252, behind the commercial buildings that are on that side, and then when the zone hits, not specifically to a house itself, but to that zone where they start.
So the folks that live in those neighborhoods, and you may know this, Eric, are not a lot of young people.
Correct.
They're mostly senior folks, which means our neighborhoods are very quiet. So when people from the neighborhood or from the residents talk about being able to hear noise from the church and noise from the Blue Line, they're very serious that it sounds like it's right in their backyard.
Correct.
Sorry. It is. It's like it's right in your backyard. So
Right.
something to consider there. And then secondly, you talked about alcohol being served to, yes, it'll be served to the local residents and those within Garden Ridge, but you're going to get a huge following. And I believe you know this from outside the Garden Ridge community. So you
Yes,
need to think
there'll be
about
some,
that.
for sure. There's, as far as the noise goes, to follow up with your question, totally understand that that's a concern, which is why even in the plan, you'll see we've shaped the building like a U, pushing away from the residential. And we actually have the stage pushing towards the U to kind of compact the sound as much as we can, as well as adding the shrubbery like I mentioned. I'm not saying you're not going to hear anything. It's going to get louder when 2252 goes up. And we had to have a traffic analysis done. There's 12,000 cars that pass there every day. I didn't bring the noise or anything. If anything, I'm trying to get some of those people off the street. 100%, they're not going to all be from Garden Ridge. But a lot of the community members have also signed a petition on our behalf. And there's over 200 names on that. They live in the area, Wildwind, and all these areas, and we'll submit that to y'all as well. There's also been 100 or so, 120 emails sent specifically to council, city council, letting them that they're in favor as well. So I know there are some citizens that are against it, but there are quite a bit that are for it as well.
Chairman Chocman, if I could, one other question. Understand, but consider where Wildwind is relative to your bar.
Right?
Thank you.
And I don't think we'll, 100%, we understand their concerns, but as a business owner, I know I'm not going to please every single person. We can just do as much as we can, like we did on the plats with the elements we've supplied, to do the best we can to help alleviate anything that anyone's having a trouble with. But those are commercial zones, and Garden Ridge spent a lot of time and money putting together a master plan that actually calls for retail, light commercial, mixed use for all these things. And that's a great idea in theory. But the people who own those lots actually have to step forward and want to do that on those properties. And now I've stepped forward to do that in the zones that y'all are saying to do them in, and then the pushback comes, so you understand the struggle. So I try to make everyone happy, knowing I'm not going to. Knowing that half these people are saying yes, and the other half have my picture on their dartboard. It's okay, I understand. We're trying to do the best we can.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions, thanks. My first question is on your letter of application, you said you would be operating in a manner to reduce noise or to minimize noise. Can you describe that?
Right, kind of similar to what I was saying. So around the pickleball courts, you can see on some of it, we have shrubbery, trees. We're keeping as many of the trees as we can, except for obviously where the buildings are going. The back part of the property, we're trying to leave as natural as it can be, 40 to 60 feet, just to alleviate that as well. And then around the stage specifically, we're putting up a fence and shrubbery again and foliage to kind of block and alleviate that. And not to foot stamp it. We're not trying to put concerts there every single weekend and blare it out. It's more for smaller acoustic shows or watching a game on the TVs. So I guess as loud as that is for a venue, similar to Willie's, if you will.
I was curious on the layout, you described the one particular building kind of shaped towards the back.
Correct.
And I noticed that there's a noise barrier wall, but it's only 6 feet tall, and it's kind of towards the back, and there's some shrubs there. And so I imagine the stage will probably be a couple of feet up, so that 6-foot wall really isn't going to do anything. I was wondering if you had a sound engineer design it. Also, you had about 8 speaker sections located, I think 2 on the stage and 4 out in the areas aiming different directions. So I can imagine, even though it's acoustic music, that you would likely have it electrically and electronically amplified because you have speakers there.
Well, the speakers aren't just for if we're having a venue, if we're running TVs and sporting games, they'll be going through the speakers as well. And those speakers, you can see, the map's not up, but you can see on the building itself, they're all faced in towards the actual center of the property where the patrons will be, not pointing out towards.
Did you have that amount of speakers designed by an acoustic engineer? Or?
We have not gotten to that point because a lot of that goes into the build plan,
Gotcha.
which we would have to submit next.
Understand.
But we will follow, we did look through and we're going to follow all the noise ordinances for Garden Ridge. There is a noise ordinance you cannot go over, and if you do, you get police calling you, just like if you were at Wild Winds and you're blaring out a party and you're a high school kid and your parents are gone. You can get the police calling you just like anybody else to lower it if you're going over and disturbing. It's written in the sense that you cannot disturb the neighbors around you.
So
There you go.
yeah, so the barrier in the back of the building at 6 feet tall, of the stage, I mean, 6 foot tall wood fence and some shrubs, that's really not going to do anything to mitigate the sound. It's actually only going to be protecting the railroad tracks from sound.
Well, there's 2 houses that are back there that we're trying to protect on that side.
Okay.
The majority of the residential zone is on the other side of 2252, which is why we face the stage towards the horseshoe of the building to block the majority of the sound. So the sound has to go through the buildings, through the roads, through the commercial buildings across the street, through the church, then there. And I'm not a sound engineer, I'm not gonna say you can't hear it, but again, we're not trying to do full amplified band music.
So even when you're not having bands, though, you'll be open 7 days a week, or?
The full schedule is not put out. Obviously, you see there's quite a bit we have to get through until we can even open.
But when you don't have concerts, you'll have music playing, you'll have TVs amplified.
Background music as well. Yeah, just like you would go, if you're at Willie's and you're eating dinner, I'm assuming y'all know there's TVs on and there's music being played, but you can talk to the person across the street from you. That's what it'd be on a normal day.
Chairman, I have one more question. I don't know, it might be for our planner. As far as a special use permit, expiration, extension, a special use permit automatically expires upon change of ownership. Is that correct? Thank
That
you.
is
That's all I
correct.
have.
Mr. Fisher, thanks for being open and candid with us and being available for some questioning at this time. Specifically with the master land use plan, from what I could tell in here, it's a 20-year vision for Garden Ridge. Under land use, on page 48 with the PDF, it's, from what I understand, this area is under special planning area number 3. And if I'm incorrect, someone please let me know. But in that special area number 3, there's basically a summary or a statement of what that area ought to be and what the vision is. Are you able to provide how the revival setting, what's being presented tonight, aligns with the vision for that, in that master land use plan?
I do not remember the exact verbiage for what it was on that, what it's calling for. But I know that we rezoned it into that, to the community commercial district, which all these things were allowed for. I believe they wanted light retail, is what it said, something to that effect. I can't remember. There's a large graph that charts it, goes on top of each other to pinpoint exactly ideas.
The last sentence does say examples of these uses of small shops, boutiques, restaurants with outdoor seating, patios, banking, professional office, dental office, et cetera.
So to answer your question, we're doing the food trucks, and we're doing them, if this helps anybody in the audience, we are having electric and water to the food trucks, so there's no generators going. When they are there, they'll just be, silent like anything. So we are offering that in the instance of it's like a restaurant, but it'll be outdoor seating. There will be a barber shop, and there will be office space. I have an advertising agency. It'll be hosted out of that building as well. And there's a 4,000 square foot building right here on the side, building number 2, which that's the one we're trying to get even more retail in. We have talks with a coffee shop would like to go in there. We have that set up as just the actual exterior built, and we'll finish out the interior based on the needs of a tenant going in. We would like to put a coffee shop and maybe a retail boutique shop in there, or poll some of our citizens and see what they think would be great in there, and we would love to go after and get them as a tenant. We have the idea of 1,000 square foot, so 4 little shops in there. Granted, if one of them needed something bigger, we could do 2,000 for one, 1,000 for the other 2. A coffee shop, though, is interested, but we'd have to go through the concept with that.
Thanks, sir. And I do have a follow-up question, if I could. Would you be able to explain, or could you explain, please, how the venue that you're presenting would align with, say, the aesthetics and the ambiance of that part of the of Garden Ridge and that street?
Yes, and there is some false thinking that it's all going to be shipping containers. That's not 100% accurate. The front part of the bar is actually too large to span a shipping container. So it'll be a regular brick and mortar building, very similar to what's built around here in Garden Ridge with stone. We're gonna have metal roofs, just like the buildings across the street. If the shipping containers that are going across the top level will actually be fasciaed with some wood siding and some plants climbing up it like a lattice. So we're trying to keep that very, I guess, country feel maybe, or green hall type look feel. And then, like Mr. Mulkey said, in the area where the food trucks are, we're trying to put a full garden in there, in pathways and walkways around the picnic tables. So it's basically looked like a nice glorified park. So if you just wanted to come for the day and have lunch, you don't have to step foot in the bar, you don't have to go to the pickleball courts, you don't have kids, that's fine. You could just go and pick some food up at one of the food trucks and just have a spot there. So we're trying to keep the aesthetics similar to what's around this area, but also making it, I get it, that some people are like, I don't know shipping containers. It's a big thing going on right now. We also want it to be kind of intriguing and cool that somebody wants to go and hang out and see what it is. We don't, no offense, want to make it look like the outside of this building. Doesn't look like there's a lot of fun stuff going on in here. Nobody knows I'm having this much fun right now outside. So we want to make it where it's a little, what is that? Inviting. So it is have that kind of that feel with a raised elevated decks. They're going to have all the trees around it, so it is kind of an outdoor feel when you're up on the decks. We're trying to keep all the mature trees around there for that. So we're trying to keep with the aesthetics of Garden Ridge.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
My question is, with all the brouhaha that you've raised over the last year, any second thoughts, and why Garden Ridge in the first place?
Yes, sir. Second thoughts, maybe, but not really. I think why Garden Ridge is because I'm invested in the community. I've had a business here for 12 years. I've lived here for a little bit longer than that. I've got a wife who teaches at the school across the street. I've got a middle schooler and 2 high schoolers. If anything, y'all should be saying yes to someone like me as opposed to some outside force coming in, because if they just put up another retail place or another chain, if it fails, they move on. My wife told me if it fails, we have to leave town because everybody knows me here. So I'm more invested in the community and seeing this succeed more than anybody here. Whether it's pleasing people with sound, whether it's adjusting stuff for variances, I'm just trying to make it work for the community because besides living in the community, having kids at the community, I also do business because of my ad agency with 12 other businesses or so in the community. So, and many of the people bidding on the project to actually work on building it are also people who live in the community. We're trying to give back and have a place for people to go. It's not just a niche thing that we think would be fun to say. We truly believe it. So no regrets. It's been a little bit more of a challenge every step of the way, but I'm not real good at giving up. If that answers your question.
Thank you for being available today and being here to answer the questions that we have. As you understand, I think at this point, you know that this is part of the process. We have to ensure that we're being thorough in what is coming into the community. So I did have a few questions on the noise levels, but to avoid redundancy, I'll go ahead and skip those as they've been answered, and you're familiar with the noise ordinance, and we've covered the aesthetics regarding the community. So one item I wanted to ask about with you stating that it is a priority of yours is safety in our community, right? So regarding the playground that's gonna be on site, what type of playground is it going to be, and how do you plan to make it safe for the children of Garden Ridge that are going to be playing at it? More specifically, I was wondering if there was going to be like a recreational playground fencing around it, considering the road and it being widening. It's going to get even busier. I was just thinking of a scenario where, you know, people are there having fun and children go running off because they're having, you know, just having a good old time. So if you could
Yes,
provide.
100%. Totally agree. That's one of the reasons we have the rear setback with the fence. It's actually the reason we strategically put the playscape area behind the bar, behind the pickle bar, so it is as far away as possible from 2252. We have talked about putting up smaller fencing around the play area. We're still trying to figure out how those pickleball courts and everything's going to play into that fence area. As far as what it's made of, it'll be similar to, if you've ever been out to the district, there's a mix of mulch and our fake grass. It'll be a smaller playscape, you know, swings, something that sort. Nothing that they can climb and jump off. I have 3 boys, so fully aware of what they'll try. So we're gonna try to keep it, you know, simple, more of an area where they can just run around. There's a place in San Antonio called Biggs. They really just have a huge open area with a couple balls, and the kids run around and kick them and just have a good time. So something to that sense where it's not that there's large contraptions that they can jump off and get hurt and do all that. So as simple as can be, and yes, we've discussed the fence around it, and it is set back for those reasons.
Okay. I do have some additional questions. Regarding security, I know you mentioned that right now the times haven't been established, of course, because it's still early in the game to state that. However, how will the property, in what way would it be secured, like during the hours of operation? And also regarding the pickleball courts, will they be secured as well? For instance, individuals going onto the property after hours, causing damage and whatnot.
So there are fences that'll be around the pickleball courts as how they're kind of installed. Obviously, high schoolers could jump them. We'll have security cameras around. During busy peak hours, we may be hiring sheriffs or off-duty police to patrol, as well as on the pickleball courts itself, the paddles, balls, everything like that, those are gonna have to be checked out. It's very similar to Chicken and Pickle, if anyone's ever been there. Usually give an ID, they give you the paddles and the balls, and you go play for your hour, you come back, you return them in. So as far as just, if they came and brought their own paddles and balls, we would have them on camera, and we could kind of, I don't know if you want to prosecute if they're just kids, but we would know who was doing it. During peak hours, off-duty sheriffs is kind of our go-to right now. We have one person we've been talking to, Officer Jesse, who used to work at the middle school as their sheriff there. So he's mentioned that a lot of them love some outdoor off-duty time when they're off-duty. So that's kind of one of our plans as of right now, once we keep building out the final build plan.
I do have one final question regarding food trucks, and I know it's still preliminary. I wanted to know, would the operating hours of the food trucks align with the business? That was one item. And the type of offerings, would it be, because I know normally food trucks are usually luncheon, maybe around dinner time. Is there going to be offerings for breakfast and also alcoholic beverages? Would they be offering it at the food trucks as well?
The food trucks will not be offering alcoholic beverages because obviously it'll take away from the bar's revenue. They're all separate entities. We're trying to get 4 different distinct food groups. You know, we don't want 5 Italian restaurants there, obviously. I would assume as of right now, it's going to be more lunch and dinner. We really want them to be there for lunch. Like I said, if anybody in the community wants to go just for lunch, that may be before the bar opens, but they will be open. Patrons will still be able to use and utilize the restrooms as well as the food truck area and the picnic table areas. As far as the food trucks going in and out, we're trying to get ones that will actually nail down a 6-month to a year lease, so you can get familiar with them. We don't want them just coming and going and people not knowing their hours, trying to figure out who they are. But they run almost as a tenant. So we can't control their hours, but before we sign them to a lease, we can tell them what kind of hours we expect them to be available. As far as breakfast, we haven't nailed down. We'll have a breakfast one specific. In talks with the coffee shop owner that we've been discussing an opportunity with, they'd like to offer some type of bagels or crescents with their coffee. And we're in hopes that would be the morning crowd in that building is what we're trying to establish with the coffee part. If that goes through, that's a whole other bear once we get past this process, finding the tenants and getting them vetted. And if they need any specific use permits for their particular businesses, I'll see y'all again. But we're hoping to do breakfast out of that building.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you, Commissioners, for all your comments. Any other comments? Any more questions to Mr. Fisher? Mr. Fisher, appreciate you coming out and answering our questions and talking about your proposed development. As far as the lighting is concerned, is the lighting like in the pickleball courts if they're not being used, are they going to be turned off or?
So we will not have the pickleball courts on it when it's not in use. And then I believe there's an ordinance for sports courts, and I believe they have to be off at 10 o'clock. So if they are going on during the week, if we we know a lot of people want to do a pickleball league. If that happens to be on a Tuesday or Wednesday, it'll be closed down and off by 10 o'clock ordinance hours.
Okay. I think that's all the comment. I mean, a lot of my comments have been already asked, so to avoid. You do? Yes. Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Just to kind of add to that, what are the planned hours of operation, days of operation?
We don't have them totally set right now. It'll be late afternoon to evening. I believe when we were doing some research on some of the other venues, sometimes during the week, they close as early as 10. Weekends might go to 11 or 12. But again, we'll be doing further research on that once we get to the final build plan and we're getting going on staffing and talking to the general manager that we have in mind to hire.
But that's, from what I understand, Monday through Sunday, so the entire week, 7 days?
It'll probably not be, there'll probably be a day or two off there. I know a lot of the places take off on Mondays to kind of give their staff time off, either Monday and Tuesday or Sunday and Monday. It'll kind of just depend on what we kind of, in our follow-up final research, what we think will fit best in the community.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. We'll be moving on. Now, I'll move on to item 1.1.1. I'll be opening up the public hearing process. It's 7:08, and I'll be opening up the public hearing. If you are going to be speaking on this specific item, just so we could have it orderly, this specific public hearing is for the cafeteria, bar, and tavern special use permit. So I'll open up. If you all want to line up, you could come up to the dais and state your name and address, and
Thanks. Hi, my name is Steve Stedman. I live at 20011 Hickory Bend, 3 houses off of 2252. A lot of my concerns have been raised tonight. One that I haven't heard that I think is important is the community dialogue, and in the all three cover letters that the developer submitted for these permit requests mentioned, and we are committed to engaging in open dialogue with the community on this project. I'm not aware of any community meetings organized by the developer over the last year or so for the life of this project to discuss the concerns of affected residents, particularly those that are going to be closest to the project that would be most affected. So, and then traffic was mentioned. There was a traffic study done. The sample size was 2 1 hour, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, peak times on a Wednesday. And that was the basis for the proposed increase in traffic. As was stated, they're not sure the hours of operations, but I'm fairly certain it's going to be much more than 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening for the increased traffic. So I urge the commission to deny the request for these special use permits. I think this probably could be maybe a good project for Garden Ridge, but not in that location. Thank you.
And if you'll please sign the sheet after you speak right there. Yes, just your name and address, please.
Marissa, I failed to mention, is there any written comments?
There is, and I will read them once everybody that is in attendance has
Okay.
spoke that they want to.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ricky Baker. I live at 21029 Hickory Bend. My wife and I bought the lot out here 37 years ago because it was peaceful, beautiful, and also it was safe. We raised our 2 kids. They went away to college, came back, and now I have 5 grandkids. Basically, I live down the street from where the proposed venue would be. Question is, old shipping carts, or old shipping containers, you know, how does that look? Having a venue of this sort here will bring noise, possible intoxicated drivers. They're putting a 4-lane roadway there. It's going to be difficult to get in and out where I turn in right there at Hickory Bend off of 2252. Crime rises, statistics show. Also, possibly decrease in your property values. I say, how will you feel if someone leaves your venue and they're intoxicated and they kill someone because they left your venue? Think about that. And often, bars or when they're serving alcoholic beverages, fights break out, and if there are weapons like knives, guns, someone gets hurt. What are you going to do about that, and how will you feel if you have this venue there? I say if you care about Garden Ridge, the beauty of Garden Ridge, the peacefulness of Garden Ridge, and the safety of Garden Ridge, you would reconsider having this type of venue there. Also, if you care about children and you care about the people, you would not have this venue there. Like I said earlier, I have 5 grandkids and we live down the street from where this venue would be. And I hate to see them grow up or someone of my family members come home and they get hit by someone. It's going to be challenging anyway with 4 lanes to turn in and out, especially if there's no street light there and the traffic is still at the speed limit that it is now. Thank you.
Hello and good evening. My name is Jeremy Jump. I live at 211 South Main Street in Cibolo, Texas. Though I'm not a member of the Garden Ridge community, I do work at the school that's 300 feet away. And I do have some insight that might be of interest to you. Living there in Cibolo, I live just about 150 feet from the 1908 cigar shop and about 250 feet from Ernie's Bar and Grill. Now, both of those do have live outdoor music from time to time, and they do play just stereo outdoor music as well. And I, being so close to them, do understand that noise can be an issue for many citizens. However, those two establishments do very well to mind the noise restraints, and the live music does end at the appropriate times, and there are no complaints from citizens in the area. As to an increase in crime, those establishments are 51% establishments, and as the Revival will be serving alcohol, it will, be under the same constraints. Now, in those places, weapons of any kind are handguns especially prohibited. So, anybody engaging in that behavior would already be committing a crime. With that in mind, living next to Ernie's in 1908, there has not been an increase in crime, and those Ernie's opened up about 2 years ago now, 1908, about 3.5, 4 years ago now. Being right there next to them, seeing what happens, and oftentimes being near the parking lot where people gather before and after, socializing and having drinks, there is no fights, arguments, and these are establishments. The 1908 is adults only, but Ernie's often does have family events, and they're a benefit to the community. Oftentimes here after work, I like to enjoy time with my friends, and there's only so many places we can go here in the area. Oftentimes, we get tired of the few places, and we go down the hill to something a little more lively. And many of those places offer family environments that would be in strong competition for the few places that are here in the area. Adding the Revival would be just one more reason to bring or keep people here in the area, spending their money here in the community, and with an outside following, that's not necessarily a bad thing, You should.
Time's up.
I apologize. So, thank you for your time.
Good evening, I'm Brian Krause. I live at 19522 Creekview Oaks. So earlier there was a comment made about the need within our society to, create a venue for families to be together, for kids to get out of screen time, and I am absolutely in agreement with that comment. But I would also point out that this city has Paul Davis Park, which is a great outdoor venue. It has outdoor recreation areas, and if we don't recognize that opportunity and we look for another opportunity that we have to tie a bar to establish, this incentive for kids to get outside, then I'm not sure that's the right approach. A comment was made earlier about the submission letters from the requester regarding dialogue with the community, and I just want to reiterate, it was a point that I latched onto as well. If there is an interest in addressing the very valid concerns that are being raised, there hasn't really been an opportunity for us to do that. We've heard about the concerns from the community, we've heard about the noise, and the answer that I heard is basically, trust me. I put up some plants, I put a building in front of the speakers, it's going to be fine. There's been no analysis of that. The speakers actually, if you look at the plat, face towards the houses, the communities where the people live. They don't face away. They don't face toward the railroad tracks. They actually face into the communities where the people have their backyards. My house is one of those that I'm concerned about. And then the comment was also made about the fact that within the commercial zoning district, all this is allowed, and that's great. And economic development of Garden Ridge is an imperative, and we need to have it. Absolutely. No argument here. However, this commission has a responsibility for upholding the character of Garden Ridge. So while something might be allowed within the zoning regulations, you still have a responsibility to make sure that those zoning regulations are being applied in a way that upholds the character and the branding of Garden Ridge. And an outdoor venue with food trucks, not a restaurant, but food trucks, with shipping containers. You can slap some siding on them, but people are still going to recognize them as shipping containers. In a community where we've established, ordinances that restrict homeowners and what they can do with their homes in order to maintain this branding and this character, I think that's something that this commission has to take into account when they look at a venue like this. And if there is an imperative to bring in that economic opportunity, then let's take the requester up on his offer and let's open that dialogue and see how we can address these concerns in a meaningful way, not just hear platitudes to say, trust me, I put up some shrubbery, I put up a wall, you won't have to worry about it. Thank you.
Do we have any other citizens to speak on this item? Yes, sir.
Howdy, how you doing? My name is Dave Biersner. I live at 19446 Arrowwood Place. I'm not totally sold on the idea of a live music venue. I wish I knew more about our noise restriction. I don't know if anybody on the committee could tell us a little bit more about that. Is that a technical restriction, so many dB at so many feet, or it's just an opinion restriction?
No, it's an actual ordinance, and I don't have the details. I wasn't prepared to talk about that, but Nancy, I don't know if you could elaborate.
It does have the decibel requirement in it.
Okay, all right. I was just
It does have a
double-checking
decibel requirement in it, sir, yes.
that. All right, thank you.
Hello, Eric Fisher. I was just going to answer a quick couple questions. The open dialogue, yes. There's a Facebook page, the Revival-GR. Y'all can probably find it. More so to the open dialogue, the only time I get negative comments or the comments or questions are when I come to one of these open hearings. And they're posted all online. The city all knows about them. That's how they know to come here. Also on there, all my information is on those. Tony Overman, who also is a developer in the area, had questions himself. He had no problem getting my phone number and calling and asking his questions straight to me. That's what we meant about open dialogue. I'm not hiding from anybody. If you search Eric Fisher in Garden Ridge, you'll even see Go Fish Advertising. All my contact information is on there. So if there are any further questions, we're happy to take those as well. The speakers facing out, that's on a small site plan plat. Those are not specifically pointed. They're icons on a, they are pointed in towards the venue. We're not trying to blare music into the road. I work right off of 2252 where they've been digging up the hole every day. All you hear is the traffic. I don't think I would hear those speakers blaring towards me and I'm across the street, but the goal is to actually have the people who are inside the actual area to hear that. But open dialogue, yes, reach out on Facebook or reach out. All my contact information is on all these plats and information, and we're open for any of the information. And I get that other people would like other things here, but nobody, like Mr. Cleckley was saying, nobody wants to go through the process because it is long. I met with Ms. Kane the first time. It'll be 3 years in August. And I'm just trying to build something that is allowed in a zone and not asking for any variances. And this isn't a special use permit, it's a specific use permit, which every single person who built on 2250 had to have a specific use permit. Now, if it was an office building, y'all already knew how to build those because that's all that's there. I've also been here and I said, maybe I'll put an office building up, and we heard sighs from the crowd because nobody wants office buildings anymore because there's nothing to do in Garden Ridge. So we are trying to build something that is aesthetically pleasing, and it won't look like a shipping yard. I understand the concern there. But it's more in our best interest to have something that's appealing to everyone to make it work. So we're hoping that that helps, but we're totally open to any other questions if they want to reach out to me. Thank you.
Hello, once again. I just want to state one more time, we are not a music venue. Like I said, Pandora's box, we are not a music venue. I know we can't put it back in, but every person that's come up here has stated, live music, live music. We are not a music venue. Period, dot. We're not the Bluebonnet. If you look at the plans, and all the citizens can, we do not have the capacity. This is not going to be this big thing. Once people won't be able to park at the bottom line, so when we're full, we're full. And full is not that full. Full is not the Bluebonnet. I implore people to go by Raptitude and look at their scale and the number of patrons that can go there. Once they're full, they're full. We'll be the same thing. And also in regards to the traffic problem, people need to do their research. They need to look at what the new plans from TxDOT be, and there'll only be one way in and one way out. People will not be able to cross 2252 because there'll be a median. So there's not going to be that danger. TxDOT's already looking at that. Growth is coming, and you think if we're going to be loud, wait till it's 4 lanes. Just wait till it's 4 lanes. And in regards to, we are concerned for our citizens. We are concerned for their safety. We will follow all the state laws, all the county laws, all the city laws. And, you know, in regards to you, sir, about how we feel if somebody got hurt, a student at Davenport High School was killed yesterday on 3009 because a box truck ran into the other lane. Accidents happen every day. Just because we're building a venue where people come doesn't mean more accidents are going to happen. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Katie Guerra. Excuse me because I'm terrible at public speaking and I'm terrified, but I'm going to do it anyways because I feel passionately about this. We used to live in Garden Ridge on Hoya Lane, and about 5 years ago we decided to move out to Ramble Ridge because of the traffic. It's inevitable. We are being surrounded. It doesn't matter if we don't want growth, it's happening. We are being surrounded. It's not a matter of one place is going to make the traffic come. The traffic is here. The reason that I think that this is such a good thing for our community is because living up 3009, if we want to go eat with our family, we either have to go to Schertz or New Braunfels. There's one place to go eat within like 10 miles of our house. And there's so many people that live up that way. If we could just have a place to go with our kids and play pickleball or do something fun and get together as families, I think that's so important. That's just something we don't have here. And I've been waiting for it for 15 years, and I know a lot of the people that I work with, I work at Garden Ridge as well, the elementary school, they would appreciate it. They would appreciate somewhere to go gather. I also see working at the elementary school, I work with kids that have a hard time socializing, and so I see the decline in our social status with our kids. They don't know how to socialize because they're inside. They're at home. There's nowhere to go. And like the gentleman said about Paul Davis Park is great. I love it. It was great for my kids when they were little, but then it closes at 8. It's dark. You can't be there anymore once it's dark. And you can't eat as a family there unless you bring food. And so I just think it's another place to go for kids besides the park that we could all get together as families. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dan Hodgson. I live at 9428 Bluebell. We've lived here for about 6 years in Garden Ridge, and we love it. We live next door to a 94-year-old lady, and she's not looking for a place to go to hang with her friends. This community of Garden Ridge is not a community of young families. It's a community that has a diverse group of people that live here. Many of them are retired. Many of them aren't looking for a place to go. They're not looking for a place that's going to have lights and music and things like that. they're looking for the peace and quiet that has represented Garden Ridge for so long. It's one of the things that drew us. You know, some people complain that there's not enough streetlights. We love the dark, and it's kind of a peaceful place. And we regret the idea that there would be something like this, but as she said, progress happens. You know, what are you going to do with the property there? So, you know, that idea that things will come, the roads are going to change. Traffic's going to get different. Okay, we get it. You know, that's part of it. Well, when I think about this venue, I think about the idea that it's going to increase the lights. It's going to increase the music, the sound, the noise. There's going to be things. Is the city going to enforce this? If there's a decibel limit, okay, who's going to enforce that? Is there going to be a time limit on it? The music can't go beyond, or the lights can't go beyond? Is there going to be somebody that's going to go out there and say, yes, we as Garden Ridge, the city, are going to enforce this? Because if there's enough public unhappiness about this, and I won't even say it's really unhappiness, it's more of like, what we don't want the bad things to happen. If it's what they say and it's going to happen, it's going to be a perfect world, and it's going to be quiet, and it's going to be just a subdued little place. Okay, I don't see any problem with that. It's only if Garden Ridge is ready to step up and say, okay, if they're going to say that it's coming, Garden Ridge is going to say, let's go ahead and give them a permit, then Garden Ridge should say, we'll enforce that. And if there's public complaints, I think that there needs to be a venue for that sort of thing. So I just think that, you know, you're the council, or you're the group that's going to make this decision, and you guys have considered a lot of things, and I do appreciate progress. I just don't appreciate progress at the cost of the 94-year-old lady that lives next door to us. Thank you.
Do we have any other residents or citizens to speak on this item? Okay, Marissa, you have some written comments? Thank you.
We just have a few written comments. The first one is from Bharat Shah at 21018 Plum Ranch Road. I am against this revival project in Garden Ridge. Sheeran Blackwell, 9303 Berean Way. Hello, I'm a resident of Garden Ridge Estates, and my home is located less than half a mile from the proposed location for the subject property on 2252. Being one of about 70 homes within this half-mile diameter, I believe that my concern should be heard and considered, as this will directly impact my quality of life. This is especially true when the proprietors of the establishment are tucked away at the back end of Ramble Ridge, far from the impact of their Garden Ridge honky-tonk. Allow me to share a personal experience that might shed some light on the potential noise issues with the proposed establishment. Despite the Bluebonnet Palace being 1.75 miles away, I can hear their performances as if they were taking place in my neighbor's home. Every word and note reverberates in my backyard, which oddly enough is on the opposite side of my home from the direction of the Bluebonnet. Adding to this, not too long ago, the Garden Ridge Market Days began, and as a result, our same group of homeowners that fall within this same area wakes up to all sorts of garage sale festivities and midway hawkers with unwanted music, the sounds of generators, vehicles, and voices just feet from our fence. While I understand that the proposed plan is for acoustic-only performances, I can't help but be skeptical. As we all know, there is no ordinance that governs this, and the establishment could easily choose to disregard this promise without facing any consequences. The term acoustic implies performances without electronic amplification, yet I suspect the reality will be quite different. I find it hard to believe that the performers will be without a microphone and speaker. A final note about the noise concerns. The proprietor mentioned such a performance that had been held in the past in Paul Davis Park without any complaints. Sure, that's once or twice a year. Do this several times a week and let's see what the folks who live adjacent to the park think. I have several safety concerns involving the increased flow of in and out traffic near the Hickory Bend entrance to Garden Ridge Estates. We now have reputable establishments that primarily have 9 to 5 operations with a handful of visitors. The proposed venue, which is dependent upon a high volume of physically present patrons, will only serve to increase the number of vehicles in an area where it is already very difficult to exit. With no plans for a light at this intersection, I will not be surprised to see an increase in preventable accidents at this location. As a homeowner and taxpayer who lives just feet from the proposed site, I ask the council to decline the approval for a venue that will impact my daily life. Tim Sturman, 9404 Gardenia Bend Drive. Please vote against allowing the 3 special use permits for the venue. I and most of the residents with whom I've spoken are completely against this. The proposed venue and variations are contrary to the idea of naturally home in Garden Ridge. The zoning rules were put on place for a reason, to keep our city beautiful and not junky. I don't think it's naturally home to have storage containers and food trucks. I can see home values decreasing as our neighborhood deteriorates with something we don't want. Also, university studies show that crime rates increase significantly in neighborhoods once bars or restaurants that serve alcohol are introduced. Is the police department and neighbors ready for increased crime? I don't think so. No, we do not want this. Once the venue fails, I envision large storage containers rusting in a vacant lot with weeds growing in the parking lot cracks. We can avoid this by not allowing it in the first place. Thank you very much for your time. Jennifer and Jason Pickett, 19423 Arrowwood Place. We are concerned about the outdoor entertainment venue/bar called The Revival, proposed for Garden Ridge. Our concerns include alcohol consumption, noise. We already hear Bluebonnet Palace music late at night, and this would be much closer in proximity to Arrowwood Estates and higher crime rate. The Revival is asking for 3 special use permits for the bar, pickleball courts, and food trucks. This type of venue does not fit our city's master plan or theme of being naturally home. We are requesting to disapprove the special use permits and this venue. Garden Ridge doesn't need to establish a precedent for bars and food trucks as part of our community. Thank you. Kenneth Smith, Jr., 19435 Arrowwood Place. Regarding the proposed outdoor music venue, The Revival, proposed for FM 2252. There are a number of reasons why this type of business is not compatible for our beautiful Garden Ridge. Number 1, this will seriously degrade the serenity and favorability of this community. 2, it will bring in extra traffic to what will soon become a very busy FM 2252 after road widening. 3, it will likely increase the number of DUIs causing accidents and property damage. 4, the noise of an outdoor venue a mere quarter of a mile from my house is unacceptable. They claim that there will be no loud musicians. However, musicians playing from a stage will require amplifiers and microphones. This noise will travel long distances, well into the evening hours, further denigrating the serenity of Garden Ridge. The Bluebonnet venue, which is 2 miles away, can be heard in Garden Ridge. Please disapprove the requested variances as a lead-in to City Council disapproval of this project. And that is all the written comments that I received.
Thank you, Marissa. So at this point, I'll be closing the public hearing for this, for the restaurant or cafeteria, bar, tavern, specific use permit. And so it is 7:38, and now move on to to discuss and make a recommendation on the specific use permit for the restaurant or cafeteria, bar, tavern.
Chairman Jackman?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. On 1.2, there was discussion and make a recommendation. Oh, okay.
Yes, is there any discussion or comments from the commissioners?
Would you like me to start on my end? Is that what you're going to do and go that way?
Go ahead and start on my left.
Okay. Well, a lot of consensus, it seems like, among our residents about this venue. I would like to start with Mr. Fisher's letter that was dated 29 February 2024, which addresses the special use permit to establish a bar above the project address. And the questions I have, or I would like the commissioners to consider, are the following. It talks about a multi-use entertainment venue, indoor-outdoor bar with inside and outside seating. So a question that I don't know that has been answered, but among us should be considered is, what is the percentage of inside to outside seating? I think we need to get an answer to that, and maybe we can get that later. Parking is based on the, excuse me?
Commissioners, if I could, remember, this item here is not about operation of the business. The item here is about how this, how this applies to the land use within that district, right?
Okay.
So we need to make sure that things about the operation, hours of operation and such. What's going in, when it's going in, those sorts of things. Those are off limits to the commission, so we need to really kind of zone in and, focus in on the land use issues.
And understanding that, but he does say in the letter regarding the inside-outside seating, he is addressing that as relates to the bar, is he not?
Yes, he's given you a description of what that proposal is going to look like, but all that permitting for the construction and the actual businesses themselves, that's much further down the line.
Okay, all right then. Then in relationship to the specific use permit for the bar, and by the way, Mark, partner, sir, you did say that, the specific use permit in accordance with our ordinance 13 calls specifically for it says restaurant or cafeteria, bar or tavern, but you are specifically asking for a bar. But you, in your comments when you were up here, said it was not a bar. Let me just point that out. Yeah, so we need to clarify that. But as far as the specific use permit for the bar, I would like to cover some ground that Chairman Bates did. And if I could get Marissa to put up page 8 and 9 of the master land and use plan. Is that page 8? I'm not going to try to go too far out of scope here, but we did have a planning and visioning meeting that took place in 2016. As a result of that, we did come up with the master use and development plan. And I think a number of folks have covered in relationship to this bar, the idea, well, excuse me, let me back up and say that what our city council looked at, what our planning and zoning committee looked at, first with the visioning, the 2016 vision, and then the 2017 master use plan, was the idea of, and it's been covered here pretty thoroughly tonight, of a community where we get the input and vision involved of all of our residents. That's why so many people are here tonight. So as we talk about the bar and the vision that the city had, and what we're talking about in terms of looking to move forward with this specific special use permit, I think now, if you would, Marissa, go to page 43, which I believe Mr. Bates covered, and that is page 48 of of our land. Thank you. So we talk about special use planning area 3, FM 2252 retail, of which this bar is going to be built on. So if we could scroll down, if you'd scroll down, Marissa, again to the part that Mr. Bates asked to be read, it'll be in let me think, it's the narrative, right there. And so, again, the specific verbiage is the zoning district should also restrict the types of uses. Big box retail, not to be allowed in this area, and neighborhood services should be encouraged and allowed. Examples of these use areas are small boutiques, shops and boutiques, restaurants with outdoor seating patio. So as we're talking about this bar, it is, as I consider a restaurant, my vision, I think what the city's vision was for what a restaurant bar would be, is something similar maybe to a Taco Cabana. It is a brick and mortar facility that has inside seating as a restaurant for eating, but it also has limited outdoor seating and patios. That's not what this is, right? This is a bar, and it does have limited indoor and outdoor seating. I don't know how much indoor seating, but it does have limited outdoor seating. And in my view, again, what the city fathers, what the city council and what the Planning and Zoning Commission did when they passed our master use plan was to consider these types of venues. And if you look at the picture that is shown for the vision up there, and then if you scroll down, there are some more pictures of the type of buildings that are being constructed, It is not the type where you've got an open venue with a pavilion, the bar with a pavilion with picnic tables underneath. And so it just, in my mind, and I think many residents spoke to this bar, as far as this specific use permit, does not lend itself to the vision that Garden Ridge is looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a question on the traffic impact analysis. On page 9, it's showing the revival commercial development. It's got an arrow, but I think the arrow is actually to a different plat. I understand it's described here in the correct location, but I think that's just a incorrect located designation. So I'm not going to be fussy about that, but it does other things in the report. In the traffic impact analysis, it does give me a little bit of concern because of the difficulty to do an analysis with the work on the road that has been done, possibly during some of this analysis. And also, it's hard to determine with the continued construction until completion. There is a lot of work that's going to be done on that road. There is going to be a central median. There is going to be 4 lanes. There's not going to be a traffic light at Hickory Bend. There will be one at Back Bay, but it's just hard to predict how this analysis really is going to match reality in the future. And I understand it's analysis. They can only go off the study, but it just gives a little bit of hesitation on the analysis.
I do know.
Did you want to say something, Nancy? No.
Well, I know our city engineer has, reviewed as part of the development on this, and they, and it's now being brought forward to us. The city engineer, haven't talked to him, but I'm sure he's reviewed this traffic impact analysis to make sure it's meeting the future demand of that future roadway for the expansion. I'm not sure, Nancy, is there any?
The city engineer is here tonight. Perhaps he'll be able to answer your question on the impact analysis.
So in regards to the TIA, what they're projecting for their traffic, the improvements that TxDOT is making on 2252 would accommodate any changes to the road that may come from the traffic that they will produce. So, like the gentleman said earlier, there's only one way in, one way out of this development, and you can't cross 2 lanes to get to the other side. You have to go around, turn around, and make it to the other side. So TxDOT has kind of addressed all of those issues with their plans that they have in place for 2252.
Well, I understand with the prediction in volume, and I understand there's going to be a turn lane into Hickory Bend, so that is one place that's going to cross, and that's about 180 feet past that exit of the venue. But it is, again, as far as doing the impact analysis, as far as the information that they could use in the analysis I did, I'm sure it must have been impacted by the amount of data as far as true traffic patterns now, with the amount of deviation in traffic because of the construction that's been going on for a while. I know it's been revised in March 2024, but I guess that's all I'm stating, is that I just have a little less confidence in it because of that time frame that they did the report. And again, I know they addressed the future design, the future outcome of what's going to be there, but it's just, it is as an analysis impact, and I guess that's why they can't really be too certain on everything, but so I understand they did the best they could with the analysis, but I just wanted to make that clear, that it is difficult to predict the future with something like this.
Sure.
I would like to ask a question, if you don't mind. Again, with the traffic, and I guess it's okay to ask that right now?
Yes, ma'am, you all are in your discussion.
Okay, thank you. I'm not so sure, picking up what the other commissioner mentioned, I'm not so sold sometimes on TxDOT's analysis, because we can use 3009 as an example. And I wonder why, even though they did what analysis they could and based on the traffic impact, I still don't understand why, since you're going to go right anyway, why wouldn't they have included a turn lane? Boy, on 3009, they need turn lanes, okay, going right even. Because, and even though there's going to be 2 lanes, if there is, say, an event going on, even though it's not going to be ticket-based or anything else, at certain times, and I think they had in the evening, like, what was it, 4:30 to 5:30 or 6, you need a turn lane to get traffic off the main thoroughfare, because people that are not going to the venue are just wanting to go, right? Why wouldn't they have included a turn lane? And that really has nothing to do with Mr. Fisher, but with the situation itself that will increase over time.
No, I understand your concern. I didn't have any part in that design.
I know that.
Yeah, and I don't know what their thought process was, but I know that they do have access points to where citizens can turn around along 2252. It may not be at that location, but they do have access to where they can turn around. And they're putting looms in, which are wide turns, where you can kind of maneuver and get large vehicles to make U-turns and things of that nature. But like I said, I don't know why they didn't put a turn lane in this immediate area.
If they're looking at future, it only makes sense.
Right.
You know, and maybe, I don't know why we as a city didn't ask them, because we've got a lot of examples on 3009.
Mm-hmm. Well, how TxDOT works, it's like, here's our plan. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, if I could ask a question on our noise ordinance, which did not check, and I don't have it with me. Is there not a time where we have a time limit for noise?
There are some time limits specified within the noise ordinance. I apologize, I do not have them memorized.
But I know that even at our community center, there is a
Yes.
time limit.
Yes.
And it doesn't go till midnight or anything, so I'm not even sure it goes to 11, to be 10 PM. Thank you, because I knew there was, so that also gives Mr. Fisher an idea of what the limit could be, and it gives the residents an idea that it wouldn't go beyond that. I
Yes.
mean, we can't control Bluebonnet, it's not in our city, but that just gives Mr. Fisher an idea. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion?
I have something, if I may. So in ordinance 13, page 13, it has the specific use permit and site plan. I was hoping I'd get that right, and I did. So under zoning administrator, it says recommend. I'm supposing that because it was pushed to us in the Planning and Zoning Commission, that the zoning administrator recommended the specific use permit. Is that right?
The specific use permit, I consider it administratively complete, so therefore I am moving it on to Planning and Zoning for their consideration and their recommendation to City Council.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And then the other piece of discussion is to go back to more or less the question that I had asked Mr. Fisher in relation to the master land use plan, the special planning area 3, and the life that is the vision of the master land use plan, about 20 years. I am not seeing, I know that we're supposed to leave subjectivity out of this and look this objectively, even though I do empathize with what was expressed here tonight prior to making my statement here. I'm personally not seeing alignment with the master land use plan. That's my perspective, and I welcome challenge on it. And that's specifically with C1, the restaurant or cafeteria, comma, bar / tavern, and related to the venue that's being proposed with it.
Okay. Well, is there no other further discussion, or Dr. Miller?
Yes, I'm having some difficulty because we keep hearing bar and tavern, and there's many, I'm not a teetotaler by any means, but I can nurse a beer all night long when I go out to drink. And there's people around me with different types of libation, and I don't care what they're drinking unless they get into fights or something like that. So I don't know where we're focusing on the bar designation, number one. The traffic analysis, I went to the conclusion of the traffic analysis. There was many pages of technical stuff that was interesting but not germane to what I wanted to gather from that analysis. And so I went to the conclusion on page 27, and it says, based on trip generation and distribution projections for the the revival commercial development, it is not anticipated that the trips entering or exiting the proposed site would have a significant impact on the surrounding roadway system, specifically FM 2252. Now, I can stay out there all hours of the night and get other data and whatnot, but I have to depend on somebody to kind of gather it all together, and that's what this outside firm, it's not TxDOT. TxDOT probably contracted, or Mr. Fisher contracted with this outside firm, I guess it's out of Seguin, to do the traffic analysis. And so I have to take that for what it's worth. My question with the cafeteria mainly was, they're not preparing food there. Where's the food coming from? It's coming from the food trucks. And they'll have to walk across the property to get to the area where they sit, although there'll be picnic tables around the food trucks as well. That was my main thing, and was whether or not they were going to be preparing food there, and he answered that question. I'm having trouble with, again, with the bar tavern designation as a disqualified.
Well, I'm not sure what to, I mean, the request is for that specific use, and that's what falls within that, the use that's being requested for, you know, the bar, and that falls within that. And so that, I don't know, I'm not sure, could answer that question. Well, well, I guess at this point, we're no further or any other discussions or questions?
I do have a question, and I'm not sure if this would be for you, the chair, or for Nancy. Should we recommend this to go forward, the next step would be that it would go to City Council. City Council will then make the determination if this gets approved or not. So they're the deciding body on that. Now, leading up to that, will there be any sort of public discussion, perhaps like where everyone comes together to be able to ask questions? And I'm referring to the community members, so that way they can ask anything that they would like to ask regarding all of the details, things that they may not already have answers to.
The next step, depending, or well, it doesn't matter whether the planning and zoning denies or approves the specific use permits. They will go forward to City Council after notice of a public hearing. The City Council will conduct a public hearing, and City Council will either deny or approve, and their decision is final. There will not be an organized public comment time or area other than the public hearing. If anyone has questions, Mr. Fisher has already offered, his information is published, and individuals could contact him separately. Individuals are free to contact contact me here and ask questions as well. But the only other public comment period will be during a public hearing before the City Council.
So to sum it up, the way I understand it, Ms. Kane, is we're not a deciding body, we're a recommending body.
Correct, you are a recommending body. Your recommendation would be forwarded to City Council, and they would take action on your recommendation.
Okay, well, at this, do I have a recommendation for item for the restaurant or cafeteria bar / tavern that we could recommend to, do I have a motion for the recommendation for the approval or denial of that specific use permit?
I recommend a approval of the special use permit for the restaurant, tavern, bar portion of the special use permit.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second for the approval to recommend the restaurant or cafeteria, bar, tavern for the specific use permit for the revival. Do I have a call? Do I have any further discussion?
Yes, just one last comment. I think your venue, Mr. Fisher, would be wonderful if it was located out off of someplace like 3009 or Raptitude is, or perhaps in Bracken. Again, what I'm going to hang my whole position on, is that in accordance with our master use plan and the vision that the city council, prior city council, and the Planning and Zoning Commission had for Garden Ridge, as specified on page 48.3, Planning and Zoning Area FM 2252 Retail, is that it be a shop or boutique restaurant with outdoor patio with outdoor seating and patios. I think they were very specific in putting that information in there. And so I appreciate you allowing me one last comment.
Sir, if I may, another discussion item or to add to it. So as I hate to be a naysayer with anything or even appear that way, our job up here as commissioners is to look at this objectively and to follow along with what's been provided to us. Even though I do have personal experience with, say, contesting ordinance with Garden Ridge and can certainly sympathize with folks in that position, my convictions lead me otherwise, and I don't I don't agree with the recommendation for approval.
Well, on the floor, we have a motion and a second for the approval to recommend to City Council for the approval of the restaurant or cafeteria bar / tavern. Do I have the...
Chairman,
Yes.
I understand and I agree with my co-commissioners based on preference, if you will. But if you look at our, the zoning, what it is zoned and what is allowed in that zone, I think that's right now, and that's just right now. They're asking for a special or a specific use to be allowed to serve, or to have like a bar, to be allowed to serve beer, wine, mixed drinks in that venue.
Okay.
And unless I'm wrong?
Yep. Boards and commissions, because I see folks getting ready to give response. We have a motion and a second, and so Chairman Jackman, we need to go ahead and call for the vote.
So I call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The nay, and a vote for nay.
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 Okay, so.
You have to vote.
So as far as for the chairman, is there a tie, a 3-3? Just so the public knows, I typically don't vote, but since there's a 3-3 vote, I will be voting, and I vote for, I vote for the approval or yay on this item. So with that in mind, the motion passes, and for the recommendation to forward to City Council. Okay. Moving on to item number 4C2. This is also for the second specific use permit for the amusement commercial outdoors to be allowed up to 4 pickleball courts on premises. I will open, I think Mr. Fisher already has explained or gone through what his plan is for the property. And there were some discussions already regarding the pickleball. And so I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing at 8:09. And so if there's any residents or citizens that want to speak on this item, they're happy to come up to the dais.
Did I get it right? Scott Miller again from 9312 Brian Way. I think y'all have a very difficult job ahead of you. I mean, the problem here is there's people who want it and there's those who don't. And I think if you draw a circle around where that venue is, you won't find anybody very far away who's against it, and anybody who lives near it and their home is near it doesn't want it. And I think that's what, when the council passes their rules on what the quality of life in Garden Ridge is and what's good, it's the balance between which overrides the other. So it's what good is it to have it, and I've heard about all the good it's supposed to bring. I don't think they're a community service organization, so they're not here for this, the benefit of Garden Ridge itself. They're here as a profit-making organization. That's what the bottom line is. They wouldn't do it if it was free. So those residents that live nearby will be suffering the consequences of whatever detrimental actions come by having this, in this case, we're talking the pickleball, if we want to legally go through it, lights, outdoor event, noise, everything that goes on with it. If you live nearby it, you're not going to like it. Just as I mentioned earlier with the church, if you live nearby it, you won't like it. Everybody in Garden Ridge loves market days. They're very proud of having it. If you are impacted by it, you're not so happy with it. So the question, I think, for the commission is, whose rights override the others? Is my detrimental quality of life better or worse off than somebody else having the benefit of either making money or having citizens that can go and have a drink and or play pickleball? There are a lot of venues in the area. These people that say they can't go anywhere, I think that's short-sighted. And if this venue was located outside of Ramble Ridge, 500 feet, 500 yards, what would they think then? Because I haven't heard a proponent yet come up who lives in the area impact. They all live outside of it. So again, I go to you to say, are you protecting the citizens who live nearby, or are you helping other citizens who are not going to be impacted have the benefit of having this venue? That's really what it boils down to. It's no more complicated. I know it doesn't impact them, and I know the Fishers, they're friends with them anyway. So it's not that. It's about who's negative and who's positive and whose rights override the other. Thank you.
Hello, Eric Fisher. About the pickleball courts and some of the concerns. I do live in Ramble Ridge. I work in Garden Ridge. My office is right there on 2252. And when I bought my lot in Ramble Ridge, it's right near the wildlife ranch. And as we know, during the summertime and many other times, there's constant traffic there. There's constant wrecks. There's constant people going 40 because they're still looking for animals. And I'm sitting there late to work because everyone coming and leaving that wildlife ranch is just thinking they're still feeding them, when really they're back on a 60-mile-an-hour road and they're not paying attention. I still bought the lot knowing the wildlife ranch was there. I didn't make this land commercial or residential. It was there when I moved into Garden Ridge. All of that land has been empty and not residential for as long as I've been here. So everyone who's bought land near it and around it, that makes sense. They are going to be more detrimental because they're closer. But when they bought their properties, it wasn't a residential right there. The people behind me are on an ag farm, and their residential house is right there. But they bought them knowing that land was right on 2252, could be commercial. So I'm not saying that it's not going to hurt some people and some people are going to be better off and some are going to be worse off. I'm just saying the land's commercial right now anyway, and that's what it's supposed to be for the master use plan for everything you want to bring in, whether it's a restaurant or my business or whatever comes in. That's going to affect people who live right near there. But they made that decision to buy their homes when they bought them. And everybody, unless they were here 80 years ago, they've all moved into the community, and many people have said it here. We moved into the community because it was small and it was quiet. Well, you moved in, so you're part of the growth. So you can't then complain that there's growth when you're also part of it. That's all I just want to say.
Nicolas Guerra. I live on 7711 Ramble Ridge. And I just wanted to add that for about 8 years, I lived off of 20105 Hoyle Lane. And so I understand hearing the noise from Bluebonnet Palace, but in my experience, when I was sitting on the backyard, the noise was not, you know, something that was a huge nuisance for me. It was not something that was going into my home. It didn't disturb me when I was, you know, having dinner. So while I understand that as a concern, I just wanted to say in my experience, it was never really a problem when I was living right there. As far as comments made about, you know, the zoning and you know, being a for-profit business, well, I think that that is what commercial zoning usually is usually businesses that are for-profit in that zone. So, in fact, tonight, most of the disagreements or concerns that I've heard are for the not-for-profit church in the area, which, in my understanding, is a place where families and children gather and have fun and have a good time. So while I totally understand the concerns of some of the citizens, I also just wanted to kind of point that out. I have 3 teenage boys, and as Mr. Mulkey said, there was a horrible, horrible, tragic accident yesterday, not far from where I live. And it scares me half to death every time I send them on the road to go do something with their friends or with their girlfriend or whatever. We had to drive all the way to I-10 and 1604 by UTSA to play pickleball, you know, a few weeks ago, or they drive to New Braunfels. And so in a community where I think we have more families coming in with more young children, young families, which is not a bad thing, in my opinion. I think having young community members is actually a good thing. I think that there will be a lot of community members who are very happy to have a place where they can send their children or they can spend time with their children as well. And I would hope that in our future, moving forward as a community, that there are more opportunities like that for our families. I, for one, coached a baseball team at Paul Davis Park. We spent lots of weekends there, but I work until 6 p.m. and then, you know, outside of daylight savings time, when I get out of work, it's dark. I can't be at Paul Davis Park. There's nothing I can do except go home. So I love Paul Davis Park for what it's worth, but there is definitely competition with other families in that small area. And so I think having other places we can commune would be great. Thank you.
Hello, Brian Kraus again, 19522 Creekview Oaks. I just want to address my comments specifically towards the pickleball courts. As was shown up on the screens previously in the earlier discussion, you know, this city does have a master use plan. When we bought into our property, we understood the master use plan for Garden Ridge. We knew about commercial development opportunities and possibilities in that area. But if we were to look at that master use plan, there was nothing that indicated that there would be a bar, outdoor seating, outdoor music, and now especially sports courts. When you look at, you know, light industrial, you look at, you know, mercantile, you look at small shops, nobody would conclude from that description that there's going to be sports courts in that area. And again, you know, respectfully, you know, y'all do have a very difficult job. But, you know, the responsibility does fall to you as the commission to make a recommendation on how this community is going to maintain its character and is going to maintain the promises that it made to its residents in terms of abiding by the character and the branding of Garden Ridge and ensuring that quality of life is maintained consistent with the plans that have been made, developed, and communicated to the population over the years. Thank you.
Do we have any other citizens to speak on this specific item for the pickleball courts? Okay. I will be closing, if there's no one else that would like to speak, I'll be closing the public hearing at 8:19. Now I'll be moving on to any discussion from the commissioners. Start on my left.
Thank you. I think that as far as the pickleball courts, in accordance with the specific use chart, that this venue follows everything that is being asked for by us in Ordinance 13 and within these tables. The only thing I would bring up would be the health and safety concern of the residents and the other customers that would play pickleball at the revival. There's some information out by the Swiss Bank UBS that estimates the number of healthcare visits due to this sport in 2023 is an estimated 67,000 emergency department visits, 366,000 outpatient visits, 8,800 outpatient surgeries, and 4,700 hospitalizations, along with 20,000 post-acute episodes. So I don't know if we're going to have within our city enough EMS vehicles to get out there, should we have the type of statistics that I pulled up just with one search. Thank you.
Any other discussion item?
I had the.
Dr. Miller?
Sorry. My question basically was about the life expectancy of pickleball. Several years ago, there was a racquetball craze, and before that, there's badminton, croquet, cricket. You can name a plethora of other things that have come and gone. And I wondered, in my mind, when I saw pickleball, I said, okay, it's good, goes with the demographics of the city, but what are they going to do with it when pickleball dies?
It's a good question. I mean, just like every other, they are putting the investment in for the courts. I'm not sure. I think there's other ways to, I don't know, that's a question. I mean, it's.
Right,
Mr.
but
Fisher.
it's a question beyond the scope of the planning and zoning, so
Yeah,
we're gonna
that's-
leave it as a hypothetical question.
Right. Any other discussions or comments? Okay.
Again, I'm sorry, again,
Yeah.
I believe that they have done the paperwork that's required for the specific use permit, and in this community commercial, it is an allowed situation, right?
Okay. If there's no other discussion, I'd like to propose or to see, here there's a motion for approval or recommendation for the approval for the amusement commercial outdoor for the 4 pickleball courts on the property. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to propose a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to deny the specific use permit for the amusement and commercial outdoor use to be allowed up to 4 pickleball courts on premise.
So I have a motion from Commissioner Bates to deny the amusement commercial outdoors for the 4 pickleball courts. Do I have a second? Without a second, the motion fails.
The motion fails.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second the motion.
So I have apologize, I guess, the timing. We have a motion from Mr. Bates to deny, and a second from, we have a second on that motion for the denial. So I'll take this to a vote. Do I have a vote for the denial of the permit, or denial of the recommendation for the special specific use permit for the amusement commercial outdoor for the 4 pickleball courts. I'd like to take a vote. Is in, all in
So
favor?
Commissioner, if I could help out, it's going to be all those in favor of making a recommendation of denial.
Thank you. So do I have a motion or a vote for the denial of the specific use permit? All in favor?
Aye.
So I have one. Can I go on, do I just have Mr. Bates?
You have me.
Okay. All right, so, and all, man, I'm losing my voice, my train of thought here. All in favor of, the ones that are in denial, I'm sorry. All, can I show a sign of, I'm sorry.
Right, so then you're going to call all in favor of not approving the motion for, the recommendation for denial.
I'm getting a little thrown off with the, so all in favor of the denial of, or denying, or denying the motion, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Okay, sorry, I apologize for that. So the motion did not pass for the denial of, for the pickleball courts. So,
Just to clarify real quick, you need to verbally vote. So was there 2 people that voted for that motion? Is that correct?
there
2?
was 2,
2 that voted for, right?
right?
Okay, thank you.
Why don't we ask Mr. Howard how he voted?
Yes. So, can I have a roll, I guess, Mr. Howard, Commissioner Howard? You-
I voted against the denial.
Okay. So I had 2,
No, you had 1 for, the rest of us.
Yeah.
Seconded, didn't.
Right, the vote for the recommendation of the denial failed 1 to 5.
okay. All right, well, so do I have a motion, do I have a second,
I make a motion.
motion?
I make a motion that we approve the recommendation. I make a motion that we approve the recommendation for a amusement and commercial outdoor use at that venue.
So I have a motion from Commissioner Miller for approving the pickleball courts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Diaz. So all in favor of recommendation for the pickleball courts to City Council?
Aye.
I have,
Aye.
so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4? And, Commissioner-
Aye for the pickleball courts.
Okay. So I have, the motion passes. It was 5 to 1. Or, I'm sorry, I didn't give Mr. Bates, getting all my votes here a little confused. On the ones that deny or nay, I'm getting my,
I choose to abstain. Thank you.
You can only abstain if you have a specific interest, and you'd have to file a conflict of interest form with me. Otherwise, you have to vote yes or no.
No.
okay, so the motion is moving forward for the recommendation to City Council for the recommendation for the approval of that specific use permit. for the pickleball courts. So moving on to item number 3, for the food truck and mobile retail park, to be allowed up to 4 food trucks.
Chairman, if I can interrupt here, just as the mayor, I think everybody needs to take about a 5-minute break, get up, stand up, stretch your legs, get something to drink or something like that, and we'll come back, just so that we don't goof up the votes. So recommend a break.
So at this point, we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and we'll recess the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and we'll be back. Go ahead and we'll pick up on item 4C3 for the food truck and mobile retail park to be allowed up to four food trucks with electric and water hookups on premises. I believe Mr. Fisher, Mr. Fisher has already talked about his overall plan for the food truck and mobile retail park. So I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting, the public hearing at 8:37. And do we have any residents or, any citizens that would like to speak specifically on the food truck mobile retail park?
Scott Miller, 9312 Marine Way. Yeah, just to clarify a couple of things when Eric talked about, when people bought out here, things were, they were there and all that. Yes, when I bought our house in '09, the church was not market days, and my understanding is this property wasn't zoned the way it is now either. So got to be careful. Some people may move in later and all that, but we didn't. But again, I'll just reiterate the same thing, that the commission's got to decide, do you give some people benefits when other people are the ones paying for it, and I mean quality of life, not money, or not, and that's really what it is. And there's no one here, many of them don't live in Garden Ridge, so their interests and their views are very different than those that do live in Garden Ridge. And I don't know of too many people who've come forward really advocating it that live here and will be impacted by it. Thanks.
And, Marissa, do we have any written comments? I know you read the ones, written comments for, at the beginning of our public hearing under the restaurant, cafeteria, bar.
Those were all the written comments that I received regarding the revival in general. Since they weren't specific to any public hearing, I read them all at once.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have any other takers for citizens to speak on the food truck mobile retail park? All right, so I'll be closing the public hearing at 8:40 and moving on to item 3.2. Any discussion from the commissioners on this item? I'll start on my left.
Doc Miller and Karen have adequately stated that, yes, in accordance with the SUP, this specific use permit in both 2.707 as well as the table on section 2.05, they do comply. They comply with everything that we're asking them to do in that SUP. However, I think that if we again go back to the master plan, and I'm looking for some support here in that, again, on page, in accordance with 2.0707, on page 103 of 164, the procedures, specific use permit regulations, item I, says compatibility of buildings. I mean, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 8 or 9 items that we are supposed to consider when we're considering this property, or this petition, excuse me, and one is compatibility of buildings and other such measures. So that was put in there. Again, if I look back to the master plan, and then fall forward to all the ordinances that were developed from the master plan, 2.07 included, I think that we have to consider what the founding fathers and the city council and the planning and zoning commission were looking at, especially with this food truck issue. Those food trucks, the diagram that I saw, the way they're parked in there, I don't know if they have a way out other than one way out. So it looks to me like they're going to be there 24/7. Now, they won't be in use 24/7, but they will be in there 24/7. And then the other thing I did, and I'm just going to, I'll kind of close with this, is that I did some research, much like on pickleball courts, with food trucks. And unfortunately, what I found out is food truck inspections aren't recurring. Things like pest control, storage, temperature control, hand washing, and equipment and proper training aren't done as frequently as what we might think. And then the other part of that is this. It says, while commercial restaurants are regulated by specific food safety guidelines, the nature of a food truck lends itself to distinctive policies adapted to the unique way the food is prepared and served. However, there is no uniform policy in the United States that stipulates how food truck management secures licensing or food safety certification or the extent of food safety training for the parties involved. So anyway, just for your consideration. Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bates.
Looking at the specific use permit and why we're even discussing this is because it's not an automatic approval from what I suppose we understand. So it's supposed to be, if you will, hashed out. Specific use permit under Ordinance 13, Bullet 20707, under paragraph A. Halfway through the sentence, it says, specific use permits are so classified because they may have adverse effects or more intensely dominate the area in which they are located than do other uses permitted in the district. Furthermore, a specific use permit is supposed to be or shall be accompanied by an application prepared in accordance with the city's requirements, and it shall include a site plan drawn to scale and showing the general arrangement of essential elements and so forth. So I think it's important for us to look at this picture as I believe we ought to as a whole, and not just an individual activity that is at times allowed under a specific zone.
Yeah, I just have one comment on the specific use permit regulations. Is among the several things to consider is compatibility, adverse effects of concentration as well. Just things that the commission has to put into consideration when making this decision.
Any other, to my right, and Gwen?
I more so just have a comment before we get to voting is I am in support of the mobile retail park, but I'm not necessarily in support of the food trucks. So I just wanted to make that statement. And that's taking into account the goals of our master plan, of our master land use plan, which I'd like to state them because we've been talking a lot about them, but those that are listening, especially at home or perhaps in the audience, might not be familiar with them. One is to protect existing residential neighborhoods. 2, develop the vacant areas to the highest potential in a quality manner to provide pathways for residents to safely move through the city on foot and bicycle. 3, maintain the community character of the city through natural protection and design guidelines. 4, develop strategies for expansions within the ETJ. 5, which was an important point for me, make the city an inviting and unique place through gateways and corridor development. And another important one for me was improve the social and physical health of the city by creating gathering places and recreational areas for residents to enjoy. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Miller or Ms.?
My questions were more of a operational nature and probably not really appropriate to a certain extent for this committee or commission. I was just wondering how long they could park there before they called it home. Like, are you there 3 months and then, then they have to move? Or is it 6 months? Or how long can a specific food truck park there before they say, hey, this is good business, I'm gonna be here? It becomes not a mobile restaurant or food truck, it becomes a fixture in the neighborhood, so to speak. I wonder about, I don't know if our ordinances speak to that. And so that's the question that came up when I was reading about it. Other than that, I had no real problem with the food truck other than, again, operational things.
Your comment, Dr. Miller, I know just what Mr. Fisher stated, that he'll be pursuing on these food trucks, the long-term leases, 6 months or to a year. So they may, I guess, appear that they're going to be there permanent, but depending on the lease, it could be up to a year. So I can't speak to other than what Mr. Fisher said.
Okay.
After having listened to Commissioner Maloney's information about how food trucks are not monitored, not vetted by the health department or anything, it gives me pause on whether or not that's the best thing for our city.
But again, 2 things. So the state of Texas does have regulations. Food trucks have to follow. County has regulations.
Okay.
Food trucks have to follow. And third, beyond all that, remember, our discussion has to be limited to land use and how it,
Okay.
exists within the ordinance.
Okay, and so that's good information. But again, I am looking at the special use permit, item C. I, compatibility of buildings and other such measures will secure and protect the public health, safety, and general welfare. I'm not so sold on the food trucks, even though they are allowed in community commercial, and they have submitted their paperwork.
Sir, if I may, Commissioner Estrada, I would just request, you made a statement earlier about community connection, walkways and such. Can you just summarize again what you were trying to convey in what you stated? I apologize.
It was more so to let the audience and also anyone listening in of the goals of the master land use plan that was done in 2018, since it's been referenced multiple times during this discussion.
Thank you.
And the relevance to the land use of these items.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Well, bring it up. Now I'll be looking for a motion on this item. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for food truck and mobile rental park use of the land in the revival establishment.
So I have a motion from Dr. Miller, Commissioner Miller, for the recommendation for approval for the food truck and mobile retail park. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. So all in favor, so I have a motion a motion and a second. I'd like to take for a vote. All in favor? Dr. Miller?
No, negative, no.
Oh, okay. So I have a one yes and any nays?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay.
Nay.
So the motion fails, or not fails, it was, it didn't pass. So do I have any other, do I have another motion for this item? For the food truck and mobile retail park?
I'm not understanding why you're
Oh.
asking for another motion, please.
Oh, okay. I got a little thrown off with the other motion. Yeah, I think I understand.
Right.
So this item is not moving forward for recommendation to city council for the food.
Okay, so,
Well, recommendation for.
right, so the motion for a recommendation of approval has failed. Is there any other motion? And if it is the commissioner's intent to send this forward with a recommendation that the special use permit be denied, then we need a motion for that.
Okay.
I make a motion then, if I can make the motion, that this be denied.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend to city council for the denial of the specific use permit for the food truck and mobile retail park. All in favor?
Okay. Is there a
Oh,
second?
I'm sorry. Do I have a second? So I have a second. So I have so all in favor of the denial of the permit, the specific use permit for the food truck and mobile retail park? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, in favor of denial.
And any nays? Okay, so the motion passes to deny the recommendation.
To recommend denial to the
recommend
planning and
denial
zoning.
To city council for the food truck and mobile retail park. Specific use permit. Okay. So moving on to item 4D. I propose, just due to the length of our meeting tonight, and if it's okay, because I know it's Commissioner Maloney, you had brought this item up, if we could bring this up and table it for our next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Do I need a motion? No. Okay. So we'll go ahead and move that item for next meeting, the Garden Ridge Walkable Community Workshop report findings related to the speed limits and marked crosswalks. Any item 4E, items applicable to the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed at the City Council. There's not really any items that really came out on me on the City Council pertaining to planning and zoning, other than I think there's one item for solicitation ordinance that got approved. Other than that, I think we're good. If there's any other comments from my commissioners that you feel. Okay, item F, 4F, the future agenda items. We have the one that we're tabling tonight on the Garden Ridge Walkable Community Workshop report findings. We'll have that on the agenda. And then I think we'll also have our next step on the NFO, on the Natural Features Overlay. I think with those two items, I think we'll have a pretty good agenda that would take up a good amount of time of discussion. Is there any other items that the commission would like to consider? No? Okay. The next planning and zoning meeting is May 8th here at 6 p.m. here at City Hall. Moving on to item 5, citizen comment period. This is limited to the citizens that I guess that have not spoken or can speak on this item.
So the second citizen comment period, you can speak if you spoke in the first one, but you cannot speak about the same thing.
Great. So do we have any citizens that'd like to come up and, if you could state your name?
Yes, it's Mark Mulkey, and I know this has been a long meeting, but Mr. Maloney, I looked at the internet, and to obtain necessary permits, license, and insurance for a food truck, business license from a business license from the Texas Secretary of State, sales tax permit from the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts, food service permit from the Texas Department of State Health Services, mobile food unit permit from your local health department, vehicle registration and commercial driver license from the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles. So your statement saying that they weren't regulated swayed the opinion of some members on this board.
Well, I don't know if it did that, sir, but I will say this. Oh,
So
that's right.
I think that's unfair, sir. So what I found on the internet completely defunks everything you found on the internet. So facts matter, sir. Thank you. I'll sign it, sorry.
Do we have any other citizens that'd like to speak on this, on item 5, on citizen comment period? Okay, moving on to item 6, adjourn. I move to adjourn at 8:59. Thank you.
I don't think I swayed you guys. I think you had your minds made up.